If you give us 11-ish minutes, we'll give you the top stories of the week. In a week where, after promising a return to boring politics, US President Joe Biden marked his first 100 days in office by putting Senator Ted Cruz to sleep. Promises kept. 2 Aussie cricketers used a loophole to return home from India via Doha, reinforcing the lesson of the summer that India always finds a way to get Aussie cricketers out. And Clive Palmer was ordered to pay $1.5 million in damages to 80s hair metal band Twisted Sister for using their hit song in an election ad. The song was "We're Not Going to Take It," and the judge said, "That's right, you're not." But our week began on Thursday, where Australia was made safe once again.
Border Force officers have found themselves in an oily situation.
Yeah, not a thing.
Seizing $80 million worth of methamphetamine disguised as canola oil.
Shame, that would have made for a cracking episode of MasterChef. And with the budget only a week away, the government, which has spent a lot of the year on the defensive, got even more defensive.
$747 million will be spent over 5 years upgrading 4 defence training areas in the Northern Territory, part of $270 billion being invested over a decade upgrading military hardware and facilities. The Prime Minister flew north to Darwin, where Australian soldiers and American Marines trained together.
Thanks for your service.
Well, that camouflage was a waste of money for a start. But for once, this was about more than just a photo op.
There's a bit of an unsaid thing here that this is all about China and its increasingly outward posturing approach.
This week, President Xi Jinping paraded China's growing naval might.
Home Affairs Secretary Michael Pizzullo declared, "In a world of perpetual tension and dread, the drums of war are beating."
The drums of war, the second worst drums you can hear, only slightly behind bongos at a house party. Still, there's no need to panic. I'm sure all of this will blow over.
One of the nation's top military commanders has declared a war with China.
Oh my God!
Is likely.
Oh, don't do that to me. Seriously though, what's China's beef with Australia anyway?
Australia's been accused by China of adopting a Cold War mentality.
Australia portrays China as an authoritarian state.
Well, if they don't want to seem authoritarian, maybe their naval ceremonies should look a little less like this and a little more like this. Now I can hear the drum and bass of war. Better. To Friday, and Will and Kate celebrated their 10-year anniversary by releasing a video that could be mistaken for a country road ad, showing just how perfect life can be when your brother isn't around. And focus turned to embattled MP Andrew Lamming. Don't remember why he's embattled? Maybe this'll help.
Previously, on things Andrew Lamming has apologised for.
A federal government MP has been forced to apologise tonight to 2 female constituents who accused him of abusing them on social media.
The member for Bowman was soon back on Facebook, writing, "In this climate, I willingly apologise. I didn't even know what for at 4 p.m. when I did it."
Remember that time you took a photo of an employee bending over at a local landscaping yard, you perv?
Is this bloke a complete F-wit? And they replied, yes, he is.
Liberal MP Andrew Lamming will quit politics at the next election.
In the meantime, he's been granted 30 days paid leave to attend empathy training.
Yeah, that's him. Great bloke. And this week on Lamming, 7:30 opened with this preemptive in memoriam picture and some shocking allegations that Lamming has denied.
China Bennett had just turned 19 when she encountered the MP in a restaurant. China says Dr Lamming asked if he could add her as a friend on Facebook.
Outrageous. Calling Taco Bell a restaurant. Have you no shame? But Andrew Lamming, seen here in what might be one of the most professional moments of his career, had his own shock revelation.
Embattled Liberal MP Andrew Lamming has revealed he's been diagnosed with ADHD.
A doctor himself, he claims his erratic actions, including allegations he harassed women online, were due to his medical condition.
Classic first sign of ADHD. He is unable to focus on one scandal at a time. Damn this cruel disorder that at least one expert says can't explain Lamming's behaviour, making it the most irrelevant diagnosis since...
For a start, I'm an Asperger's person.
To Saturday, specifically 12:25 a.m. Saturday, when revellers staggered home to a staggering press release from the government.
For the first time in our history, it will be a criminal offence for some Australians to come home from overseas.
Anyone found breaching this directive faces a $66,000 fine, a jail term of up to 5 years, or both.
It would be the harshest enforcement of the Biosecurity Act since Barnaby Joyce threatened to kill Johnny Depp's dogs. It's a move that left thousands of Australians stranded in dire circumstances.
There are currently 36,000 Australians stranded overseas, 9,000 of them in COVID-stricken India, which is expected to record more than 400,000 new COVID cases today.
With the horror of the crisis in India only getting worse and harrowing reports of desperate Australians trapped overseas, it was important to focus on the most vulnerable, our cricketers.
16 Australian cricketers playing in the lucrative Indian Premier League have been caught in the middle of this health crisis.
14 Australian players, coaches and broadcasters remain. Star batsman David Warner among them.
Yeah, that reminds me, it's bin night. Before long, criticism of the ban started to grow.
Then I've got to ask, given all that, is there racism behind this decision?
I don't know where that conversation's going.
Aussie cricket great Michael Slater has unleashed a scathing attack on the Prime Minister, saying Scott Morrison has got, quote, blood on his hands for blocking the return of Australian citizens from India.
While the PM responded from the People's Republic of Beef-Trailia.
Jailing and fining returning Aussies. I mean, as a sitting Prime Minister, it's incredibly heartless.
I think the likelihood of anything like that occurring is pretty much zero. We're going to keep bringing back people safely from India.
The PM there affirming his sensitivity to Indian Australians from a cow-killing festival. To Sunday and the 10-year anniversary of the death of Osama bin Laden, which you may recall America announced in the traditional forum, professional wrestling.
We have caught and compromised to a permanent end Osama bin Laden.
Will and Kate celebrated the anniversary by releasing this video showing just how perfect life can be when you shoot bin Laden in the face. And the nation awaited the results of the hotly contested Tasmanian election. In one corner, we had current Premier, admirer of bread, and owner of a mysterious sexy panther tattoo, Peter Gutwein, who doesn't need the PM to hold his hand.
I don't need the Prime Minister to hold my hand.
Too right. And in the other corner, forget which one, Labor candidate and elbow enthusiast Rebecca White, a fan of focusing on what matters to them.
I'm going to focus on what matters to them.
See, told you. The election was mired in controversy from the drop as Premier Gutwein sent Taswegians, no, that can't be right, Tasticles? No, that's worse. Tasmaniacs, yeah, to the polls early. A contentious move as his main rival was due to give birth to her own unregistered voter.
How is forcing a heavily pregnant woman to go to the rigours of a long election campaign, how is that respecting the rights of women?
I have given this a great deal of thought, and obviously an election later this year is completely out of the question. But I believe...
Why? Why is the election?
Well, in June, late June, Miss White will be giving birth, I understand it, and through July we'll have a newborn child.
Yeah, and even into August, because babies, like a panther tattoo, are for life. So who won? Gutwein. Probably...
Premier Peter Gutwein has claimed a historic third term for the party.
The Liberals have long claimed victory, but it will still be days before we know the makeup of Tasmania's House of Assembly.
Why so slow? Well, Tasmanian voting can be complicated. How complicated? Let this real video from the Tasmanian Electoral Commission explain.
In your electorate, not one but 5 people will be elected to Tasmania's House of Assembly. How are the 5 chosen? To get elected, a candidate needs enough votes to fill a quota. Some people get more than enough votes to fill a quota. The preferences from these votes are redistributed to the other candidates.
Still not sure who won, but God, I could go an omelette. To Monday, and at a Labor Day rally, that's Labor with a U, Labor with no U leader Anthony Albanese found himself overshadowed by the Queensland Deputy Premier.
Stephen Miles was speaking to a crowd of union members and supporters when he made the accidental remark calling the Prime Minister a derogatory term.
Albo's here with us at Labor Day, while Scott Morrison's charging $5,000 a head to have dinner with him. What a contrast. Don't we need contrast? Contrast.
Miles, clearly upset with himself, claimed he didn't mean to be such a controversial figure, saying the crowd might have misheard him. Yeah, you know, I reckon they heard him perfectly. That's classic Labor, though. You know, if people like what they're saying, they must have misheard it. And Western Australians were facing the possibility of another snap lockdown after a hotel worker tested positive, jeopardising one of the two things to actually do in Perth.
Perth tonight on a knife's edge.
An empty Optus Stadium. Spectators banned from the Western Derby just hours before the first bounce.
And it's a very different derby in Perth.
Well, it's not that different. Freo still lost for the 11th time in a row. Probably glad there was no one there to see it. And for most of this year, parts of regional Australia have been overwhelmed by an unfolding natural disaster. And we'd like to warn anyone having dinner to take a big bite right now.
Rural New South Wales is being hit by an out-of-control mouse plague, with shocking video showing thousands of rodents swarming across crops and blanketing highways. Oh, this is nightmare stuff.
Yeah, even my nightmares aren't that gross. It's a crisis that has been compared to the spread of COVID, while local cats have just given up. To Tuesday, and Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates and his wife Melinda Gates announced that they were getting a divorce.
The statement said, "We no longer believe we can grow together as a couple."
Bill says he plans to continue his philanthropic work, and Melinda plans to spend $1 billion at an Apple store. Take that, nerd. Also Tuesday, and to Beef Week in Rockhampton, a festival as beefy as it is informative.
This is a knife.
I'm learning already. The festivities kicked off with a range of activities from mildly distressing to delicious.
I'll be breaking down an entire carcass.
One tradition we'll never tire of. Beef Week's got it all. Which brings us to today, Wednesday. And finally this week, tough unemployment news out of America.
The NYPD is getting rid of its controversial new addition, a robot shaped like dog.
The department has decided to end its contract with Boston Dynamics and return the DigiDog. This was after it received rough reviews. Critics felt it was too dystopian.
Well, good to know the NYPD can fire at least one police officer.